Let me wish everyone a very good afternoon. Dr. Saurabh, it's an honor to have you here. Thanks a lot for joining us. And thanks a lot for all the attendees for your patience as we are ready to explore the world of Aadhaar and other digital public goods and how businesses can actually leverage them for their own growth. A quick word on housekeeping, please. I request the attendees to share your questions during the webinar through the Q&A option on the screen. Once Dr. Garg completes his presentation, we will begin the Q&A round. With that, may I now request Mr. Sudhir Sethi, founder and chairman, Chiratae Ventures, to please open the webinar.
Thank you, Mandeep, and Dr. Saurabh Garg, welcome. In this day of technology, my apologies, technology was not working. I think the public goods in India are very unique. And the earliest player in the public good infrastructure was UIDAI, which is popularly called Aadhaar. And Aadhaar is a unique identifier for every Indian as such, and has been a bedrock of the IndiaStack phenomena and multiple other platforms that have leveraged this identifier. For example, it enabled the digital payment force UPI, and then other platforms like NHS, ONDC, etc. And of course, OCEN in the initial days and later on, helping digitize completely population scale India. In fact, UPI also continues to grow as such. To explain this massive scale and impact which has been achieved and how Aadhaar forms the bedrock, as well as not only for consumers, but also for businesses in the future. Really a pleasure to have Dr. Saurabh Garg, Chief Executive Officer of UIDAI. Dr. Garg is an IS officer and on work with the Ministry of Finance, the World Bank, and the Tata Administrative Services. He has worked on areas like digitization of agriculture, direct income transfer scheme for farmers, formalization of the NIF, improved FDI policies, and a host of other policy-related matters. Dr. Garg holds a PhD in International Economics and Development from the Johns Hopkins University, and is an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and a BTech from IIT Delhi. It's a privilege for us to have Dr. Garg today, and we look forward to Dr. Garg, your enablement of Aadhaar and how it is going to be used for businesses as we move forward as such. Welcome, Dr. Saurabh Garg.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sethi, and thanks to you and your team from Chiratae for having me and inviting me to this discussion. And I'm very happy to know that we have a mix of people who are doing, entrepreneurs who are doing their own startups and others who are investing in this ecosystem. So it's a pleasure to be here. As mentioned, I would be speaking a bit on how businesses can leverage Aadhaar and perhaps the IndiaStack in general. So if it's okay, can I share my screen?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Is it visible?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll minimize my this thing, so this should help. Yeah. This is what I would be talking about for the next half an hour to 40 minutes, and would be happy to take questions after that. Yeah. So just to start at a broad level on the IndiaStack, and I would strongly urge that if you really want to know a bit more about the IndiaStack, there is this website called the IndiaStack.global, which has much more details. But what is commonly referred to as the IndiaStack are these 12 basic building blocks, which have been built over the past a decade or so. And this is what forms the crux of the digital public infrastructure, the DPIs, which I talked about. It's Aadhaar, UPI, and OCEN and DigiLocker are perhaps four of the biggest ones. And then you have the Adiksha, which is on the education sector. Umang is for people to access different government services. GEM is something which is, of course, within the government as of now, but a lot of the procurement is done, all government procurement is done through GEM. And e-office is what has ensured that now there are no hard files with a lot of red tape built around them, and you only have e-files now. So these are what is known as IndiaStack. Some of them have already been enabled for private businesses to use. Some are in the process, but I think the objective is to ensure that each one of them should help in the ease of living for residents in the country. Just to talk about the scale which they have achieved, Aadhaar is perhaps the largest in that sense of having covered every resident in India. So we have about 1.35 billion Aadhaar numbers, Aadhaar cards issued. And the kind of authentications that are happening every day, I'll be talking a bit about that. But that has also been the infrastructure which has helped the direct benefit transfer, the DBT program, by which the government is able to transfer funds directly into the bank accounts of people. The government e-marketplace, GEM, has more than 55,000 buyer organizations. As of now, the buyer organizations are essentially state governments and the central government and their agencies. But the 4.6 million sellers are essentially all from the private sector. And both goods and services can be procured by any government agency. It's probably been extended to parastatals, semi-public sector organizations, and hopefully, as we go forward, it will have a wider ambit. The UPI is something I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. I don't need to talk about it, but it's the leading payment mode, which runs on the Aadhaar rails as well as using the mobile. The GSTN network, which has helped a lot of the corporates in the payment of the indirect taxes, and of course CoWIN, which was the backbone by which we were able to do the 2 billion vaccinations so seamlessly, and all of us, I'm sure, have the vaccination cards issued through the CoWIN mechanism. Coming specifically to Aadhaar and the IndiaStack, you have the Aadhaar payment bridge and the Aadhaar enabled payment systems, which ensure that funds are transferred directly into the bank accounts, and that people in the 6.6 lakh villages across the country are able to withdraw funds from their village, from their local pawn shop, without going into a bank through the AEPS. I think this is why the DBT, doing the DBT program, and more particularly the last 2 years during the COVID times, people were able to withdraw cash and get cash into their bank accounts. The eKYC, which is the foundation for any kind of financial transaction, whether it's the banks, whether it's the NBFCs, whether it's the insurance companies or investing companies, any of the regulated entities are being able to use this. eSign and DigiLocker, many of you would have known in the yesterday's budget. It was mentioned how DigiLocker, where individual can get their certificates. There's also a program for having an entity-based DigiLocker. So that's still in the works. eSign is something by which you can sign documents electronically without the need to being physically there. In Maharashtra, they are using it, for example, for signing as simple things as lease agreements, so that the tenant and the landowner doesn't need to be there at the same time, but they are able to sign across sitting on two ends of two laptops. UPI I have mentioned, and account aggregators is something which is already building up, and hopefully this will ensure that credit becomes so much easier for everyone. Talking more particularly of Aadhaar, I'll have a few slides focusing on Aadhaar. I mentioned about the 1.3 billion Aadhaars that have been generated. We have nearly around 16 crore updates having every year, which is people are updating their mobile address, etc. Nearly all adults who are resident in the country have an Aadhaar, and that's how you see the 100% saturation. It's the 0 to 5 year age group, which is a rolling target, since every year you have around 2 to 2.45 crore births. And by the time they are 5, we ensure that most of the people have the Aadhaar. Authentication is what businesses use, because enrollment is one part. It's the usage of Aadhaar and how it helps in the ease of living of people. That is really important for residents and for businesses. So this is just to give, I'm sure many of you are aware that you use your 12-digit Aadhaar, or in case you're not very comfortable in sharing your Aadhaar number with some business entity, you can also use your virtual ID, which functions, and you can change your virtual ID every 24 hours so that you can get yourself authenticated, but that business entity or the other entity which with whom we are not so confident about passing on your Aadhaar, you can give your virtual ID. You can have a name and Aadhaar number verification, or through the mobile number and the Aadhaar number, and confirm whether it's you, and or through the biometrics, which is obviously at a higher level, the iris, the fingerprint, or the face, or the one-time password. So we are doing currently 7 crore authentications a day, 70 million, and it's growing. At peaks, we have done more than 8 crore or 80 million. And we are augmenting our capacity to ensure we can do 20 crore transactions a day. And that's the kind of growth we are expecting. This is where a number of, in the authentication system, it's the authentication user agencies, which is where you have the banks, you have the NBFCs, you have the other business entities who are authentication user agencies. All central and state government agencies are there. And for cyber security reasons, they do not directly ping onto our data servers, but they do through authentication service agencies who follow a certain rigor in how, just to ensure that it's coming from a trusted source. So a basic thing is we only allow trusted sources to ping on our servers. And what we are looking forward to is looking forward to a greater number of entities becoming user agencies. The 800 cooperative banks, we are working with them. As I mentioned in the previous slide, around 300 NBFCs are there, but there are more than 9,000 NBFCs which are regulated by RBI, SEBI, or any one of the regulators. And we are trying to ensure that they get onboarded fully and they are able to use the power of Aadhaar for their onboarding of new clients or authenticating existing clients whenever they give loans, whenever any investment is done. And this is where we are working with the regulators. We've introduced face authentication just about a year and a half back. And there are increasingly around 15 to 20 entities now on board. And the face authentication is something which is so much easier because it can be done through your own mobile. You don't need any other attachment. Unlike for the fingerprint reader, you need that small attachment. So as we expect that face authentication will grow much faster going forward. We've made usage of Aadhaar so much cheaper. It's always been free for government agencies. For any non-government agencies, the yes/no authentication is 50 paisa, and it's only 3 rupees now for any other entity, NBFC, bank. So what used to cost maybe 1,000 rupees or more to identify and onboard a new customer, it's now only at 3 rupees. And we have something which is called offline, where obviously offline means that it might be slightly dated, the information, but where a month or two old information is not really much of concern, that service is free, has always been free. And I'll talk a bit more on the offline also, since there might be interest in that too. I mentioned about the authentication transactions that we are doing about 7 to 8 crores a day. 95% of 75% are biometric and about the balance are either demographic or OTP. The financial system is one of the leading users of Aadhaar authentication. Government has been a user through PDS, Mandrega and all. And the telecom companies are also because of the SIM cards issue and all the authentication requirements. In the offline, every Aadhaar card has a QR code. It's an encrypted QR code, and which can be read using the QR code scanner available on the Play Stores. So it's free. So it's something that if anyone shows their Aadhaar card to you, how do you determine whether it's Photoshopped? I can always paste someone else's photograph. It's through the QR code. And the QR code is encrypted. And if it has been photocopied a number of times, the QR code reader very often is not able to pick it up. So that's a clear sign that this Aadhaar card has been photocopied using a very low resolution photocopier. But even if it's been photocopied using a good resolution photocopier, the name, the photograph are all there in the QR code. And if someone has photoshopped either the name or the photograph or changed some other details, that can at once be detected. So we have been promoting that people should verify the Aadhaar if anyone provides the Aadhaar in the paper copy. Obviously, the best is to do a biometric authentication, but in case you are in a place where connectivity is not there or you are not an authorized user agency, then you can verify any Aadhaar using the QR code, and which I've mentioned. And there's also a method by which the user, any resident, can share an XML file, and that can be used. So, but that requires the user to email it to you or WhatsApp it to you. This is available on the PVC, on the Aadhaar card itself. The enabling provisions under the law are already there for voluntary use of Aadhaar by any person, any resident. And Section 8A provides the condition for offline verification. In 2021, we issued the regulations also, which provides the legal basis for anyone to accept and verify the QR code. Just to talk a bit of the impact that it has had in the government and some of the other sectors, we've been able to transfer, government has been able to transfer 8 lakh crores over the past 4 to 5 years under the different social welfare programs, uniquely and securely to beneficiaries. We have nearly 1,100 schemes which are onboarded on using the Aadhaar platform. Some under the Section 7 notification, which is, I'm not getting into those technicalities, but every state government and all the central government is using it. The Jan Dhan Yojana, we are able to open up 45 crore bank accounts within a period of 7 years and reach an 80% saturation, which might have otherwise taken us 47 to 50 years to achieve. Cost of onboarding of a customer, this I've mentioned that they have said that it has reduced from somewhere around $23 to 0.15 cents. Even 15 cents, I think, is on the higher side. These are the World Bank estimates. And obviously the time saved is so much more. I spoke about the doorstep banking due to AEPS. And there are 400 million such transactions happening through the 50 lakh micro ATMs in the villages. We have 6.6 lakh villages and 50 lakh micro ATMs. So those are those kind of small POS devices, which are card readers to which you can attach a fingerprint reader and do transactions from your bank account. I spoke about what the jump that happened in the COVID time. The One Nation, One Ration card, that you can draw rations even if you are a laborer from city or place X and working in Delhi or Mumbai. You can draw your rations here, your family can draw their rations in their village, And that's possible because of the One Nation, One Ration card rolled out using Aadhaar. Reunification of missing children is something for very often we have these stories of someone going with a train from place A to place B, and the child gets left behind. And as long as that child has been enrolled in Aadhaar, after the age of 5 is when we take the biometrics, we have been able to reunify more than 500 children with their families. Going forward, which is what perhaps a lot of people would be interested in. I mentioned about the offline usage of Aadhaar, and we also have the mobile app, the mAadhaar, which is also has all the functionalities which are available on the portal also. We are looking at how through the mobile app, the mAadhaar, on which the QR code is available, whether through deep linking, it can be linked to any other app, business app, so that they are able to pick up the data from there. How we can share the QR code or the offline KYC with an entity app running on another device, so that the resident is running their mAadhaar on their device, and they can transfer the data by use of the camera of the other device or other mechanism, or send it through Bluetooth or link it. Local face match, that using the photograph which is available on the Aadhaar in the mobile Aadhaar app, how can a user agency use that photograph to confirm whether that person standing in front of them is actually that person. Access control 4, which is, you might, if you have used Digi Yatra in any one of the, I think, 5 airports that it has started, at the back end, it uses Aadhaar to match the photograph, and then whether the person and the photograph match. And that's how Digi Yatra hopefully will get rolled out in all the airports by the Ministry of Civil Aviation. All of these obviously are based on resident consent. I think that is a given. We don't do anything if resident consent is not there. And that's why if it's a mobile Aadhaar app, the assumption is that the resident, if they are willing to share their mobile app, their consent has been taken in that sense. We've created a data science workbench to work with the research community, with the academic institutions, so that we can develop more AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning based products. We're doing a bug bounty program with ethical hackers. We had brought out the ad recently, and we had a large number of entries. So we will take their help to find out vulnerabilities and strengthen our systems. IIIT Bangalore has started this modular MOSIP program, the Identity Platform, Modular Open Source Identity Platform, MOSIP. And we are looking at how we can develop global digital identity standards, which can be used by other countries. And to that extent, the ecosystem partners who are working with us would have opportunities in other countries also. This is something that we are working on developing an indigenous biometric automated identification system, which is based on deep learning. This is work which is going on, and we hope to roll it out and put it into production soon. I mentioned about our research with different academic institutions. And the last bullet is something which is we pride ourselves on, that we have a lot of volunteers who have regular day jobs in different companies, but they spend a few hours with us, depending on, or we put them in advisory committees. We have a volunteers guideline. We would be happy. It's there on our website, but in case anyone wants, we would be happy to share it with them too. Indigenization of cybersecurity components is something that we are working with. We are already working with 2 startups on developing certain of these tools, the cloud security tools that we are developing and the hardware security modules that we are working on. We would invite startups, others interested in this area. We would provide the environment for testing these products. These are some of them, most of them are software products, some are hardware products. We would provide the environment to test them so that, and this are useful not only in UIDAI, but across other agencies, not only in the government, but also in the private sector. We have a sandbox where we provide the environment to develop products or to develop services around APIs, and we would be happy to work with them. We have already, NASSCOM is also coordinating with us on this. And since we work in an open source environment, what we want is our product documentation in Git so that people are able to develop products and codes around that. Just to mention a bit more on how IndiaStack and Aadhaar are going global, India is the chair of the G20 this year, and the digital vertical is an important component and a pillar in our different discussions. There is a lot of global interest in many of the IndiaStack products, and we are working out the details of how other countries can use it, because all our products are open source. So to that extent, it makes it so much easier for any other country to adopt it. Obviously, the standards are something we need to ensure that those standards are developed, which will be useful not only on digital identity, but some of the other products also. UPI is something which has already gone global. So this is my last slide. On the left side, I've just given how residents can approach for their individual grievances. I just thought I'll give that also. We have, in fact, we've been consistently rated among all government agencies to have the best grievance redressal mechanism for residents and customers. We have obviously our 1947 through which one can call. We have the email, we have the portal, we have on the portal the chatbot, and of course, walk-ins are obviously there. If there are any business queries, I've just given the email, you can send it at that. I would also encourage you to go through our website, and that might have some information which may be of interest. So I'll stop here and stop on this note out here. Thank you.
Excellent, Dr. Garg. Thank you. This is very useful. I think sort of one of the most unique systems in the world. It makes India proud, and it's going into business applications. Maybe before other questions, I have one question.
Sure.
Overall. Now, assuming I'm an entrepreneur, I have an app on which authentication is required. And what are the steps which I have to do for an independent authentication based on the to be integrated into my app?
Yeah. So that is something, as I mentioned, deep linking of the apps is something which is what we are aiming for. And right now we are doing a POC with one on the banking side. And our technical team, which our tech center is based out of Bangalore, I would be happy to have whoever is interested in doing that to link up with our technical team so that this deep linking of apps is possible. But we have the mobile Aadhaar app, which is going to be the base which that deep linking would happen. So the resident would have to have the mobile app on their smartphone and obviously the entities app. And those two apps, at the moment, it's not a seamless process, but there exists a process by which you go into your app. From that app, you can access the mobile Aadhaar app, and then you can pick out the data and then bring it back. But how to make it more seamless is we'd be happy to work on concepts on that.
Yeah, I think from a point of view, because Aadhaar is the individual identity, and anything to do with individuals transacting businesses or transacting commerce, the first step is, am I the right individual? Even on on a mobile phone, because that mobile phone can go to somebody else. Could be very interesting applications if it is seamless, available to all the 100,000 entrepreneurial organizations in the country, because they somewhere deal with buyers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah,
sure.
in fact, that's the reason why we enabled face authentication,
Right.
because that is something that the mobile phone can look at. I mean, from the camera can know that there is a live human being, and that's the face, and compare it with what's available in the Aadhaar database.
Yeah, Dr. Saurabh, Garg, thank you very much for taking time. It has been quite interesting to think about how Aadhaar can be used for businesses and the plans for extending Aadhaar's usage in other areas. I'm sure this is going to increase the ease of doing business and also move in the direction of digitalization across the board, and that should improve productivity as well as inclusiveness of many of the businesses, which can actually, based on this, can become finance also on the IndiaStack. So I think it's a great initiative, and India is also showing the way of how digital public infrastructure can accelerate. And in fact, I just read an article saying that this whole initiative of IndiaStack and other digital public infrastructure can increase GDP growth by at least 1%, right? So that's a great initiative, and thanks for taking time to share it with the startup ecosystem so that they can also participate in the same. Look forward to being in touch with you, sir.
Okay, great. And thank you. I enjoyed this engagement and look forward to being in touch as we move ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garg, and thanks to the attendees. Have a good day.